Grand work the last job was. I gave the lady no time to squeal. How can they catch me now? I love my work and want to start again. You will soon hear of me with my funny little games. I saved some of the proper red stuff in a ginger beer bottle over the last job to write with, but it went thick like glue and I can't use it. Red ink is fit enough, I hope. Haha. The next job I do, I shall clip the lady's ears off and send to the police officers just for jolly. Wouldn't you? Keep this letter back till I do a bit more work, then give it out straight. My knife's so nice and sharp. I want to get to work right away, if I get a chance. Good luck. The miracles of humanity are endless. We have achieved the unthinkable and continue to push every boundary, while at the same time committing acts that are straight out of nightmares. Horrors that also push every boundary. These are the horrors of humanity. For me, this story started in the back alleys of downtown Hamilton, Ontario. I was on a paranormal tour when the guide brought us to this specific alley, and we were told about a story of Jack the Ripper once roaming this alley. Now I thought, no way, there's no way Jack the Ripper was in Canada, never mind Hamilton. So I started to do some of my own research, and what I found was a story that is just absolutely mind-blowing. It involves the Jack the Ripper case, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, a lot of cons and scams, just a lot of craziness. And to me it's crazy, and not too many people know about it because it's a story and a half. Jack the Ripper, one of the notorious serial killers, continues to captivate investigators and speculators to this very day. The murders and mutilations of 5 prostitutes in the East End of London during the summer of 1888. This was a summer that would not only change history, but the lives of many unsuspecting people. Nobody has ever successfully been identified as the murderer, but at the time, police had many suspects. In this video, we're going to take a look at one of the main suspects, Dr. Francis Tumblety. The element of mystery continues to be a big component in the story of the Jack the Ripper case. And just like the case, Tumblety's early years are shrouded in that very same mystery. Some people claim that he was born in Canada, others claim Ireland. But we don't even know what year he was born in, so nobody really has a clue on when or where this man was born. What is known is that at around 10 years old, his family moved him to Rochester, New York. As a teenager, he was employed by a rather eccentric doctor who called himself an expert on French cures for sexual diseases. French cures for sexual diseases in the 1800s. I don't even want to see that. Francis's job was simple: distribute the doctor's sexually explicit literature along the Erie Canal. One day, while distributing the doctor's work, a self-described, well-known and celebrated Indian herb doctor caught the attention of Francis, who seemed very interested in the herbalist's secret knowledge of mystical cures and medicines from India. I think we know where this is going. Shortly after their encounter, In Detroit, the doctor labeled Francis as a full-fledged herbal doctor. With his newfound title, Francis began a journey throughout Canada with the intent of selling his snake oil. Indian herb doctor, 1800s. Yeah, sounds about right. He was going around the country scamming people. He claimed the oil had beneficial healing properties. He made stops in London, Hamilton, and Toronto, Ontario, before making his way east of Montreal, then eventually making it to St. John, Newfoundland. While in both Montreal and St. John's, Francis ran into some trouble. In Montreal, he was arrested for performing back-alley abortions for prostitutes. Then, while in St. John, one of his patients died. I wonder why. Maybe herbalist, snake oil, unqualified doctor maybe. He was charged with manslaughter, and knowing that he was not going to be able to beat those charges, he fled to the U.S. In 1861, he settled in Washington, D.C. And since he had so much of a medical background, with all that snake oil, he decided he was going to become a surgeon. Yeah, who needs an education for that? Years of training or anything like that. You just travel around selling snake oils and, being arrested. As a means to accomplish this, Francis began making ridiculous claims that he was part of General George McClellan's military surgical staff. To further these claims and to attempt to display his credibility as a surgeon despite having no training, he invited the general's officers to an illustrated medical lecture. However, this lecture would come with some very sinister foreshadowing. It was here Francis's hidden hatred for women started to become clear. New York City lawyer and Civil War journalist Charles A. Dunham attended the event and was quick to note that no women appeared to be invited. When he asked why, this was Francis's response. "I don't know any such cattle, and if I did, I would, as your friend, sooner give you a dose of quick poison than to take you into such sin." It was after that little outburst that it was reported Francis went into a whole tirade denouncing women, especially the quote-unquote fallen women. It has been claimed that Francis's wife, while he was married, was also a prostitute on the side, and this could be a source for where the hatred for women and prostitutes came from. Francis then led the lawyer and a few other guests to another room, where he revealed his anatomical collection, including his prized collection of uterus specimens from, quote, every class of woman. Charles Dunham was known for exaggerating stories and not always being honest in his stories. That doesn't sound like journalists, does it?
You are fake news, sir.
This claim of his collection can be backed up by other witnesses in other cities. People have claimed to seen him showing it off in front of his New York City office. Needless to say, after that tirade, they just didn't pick him up as a surgeon. I mean, no training, hatred for women, a collection of specimens that he just brought along for it. Why wouldn't they take him? Military surgeon material right there, 100%. After being turned down for that position, Francis went back on the road selling his snake oils until 1865, when he was arrested in St. Louis and taken to Washington for alleged complicity in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. The police believed that he was an associate of David Harold, a man who was captured alongside John Wilkes Booth. However, they didn't have enough evidence to hold Francis, so they let him go. After this, he continued to travel around, selling his oils, and even expanded into Europe, visiting Europe several times, until the year 1888, when he permanently moved to the west side of London, England. Shortly after him moving there, the infamous Jack the Ripper murders began. Right in the midst of the murders, the police arrested Francis for gross indecency and indecent assault. He was granted bail. Not but 2 days later, another woman was murdered. He moves there. The murders begin in a fashion that would fit everything that's been described about him so far, about the hatred for women, the hatred for prostitutes, surgically removing uteruses, back alley abortions, all of it. It really fits the MO of Jack the Ripper. Those murders begin. Francis is arrested. The whole time that he's in custody, several days, no more murders. He's released from custody. There's another murder. Really circumstantial, but that's quite a bit against him there. 1 week later, he attended a court date, and then immediately following that court date, he fled. He took off to France, and then back to the US. After he took off, several Scotland Yard officers saw him as a main suspect in the murders. And an officer was even sent to the US to track him down. Now, the charges he was up on were basically misdemeanors. They weren't going to send people halfway around the planet to try to capture him for those crimes. They wanted him in connection with the Jack the Ripper murders. Then, the police in England thought that there was another Ripper murder. So Francis was ruled out as a suspect. If he was in the US, there's no way he could have been Jack the Ripper, right? Well, a few months later, after they had lost the trail of Francis, let him go, they concluded that it wasn't a Ripper murder. It was a murder that was totally unrelated. Now, there's a lot of people who say he couldn't have been Jack the Ripper, and there's a lot of people that say he very likely was. A handwriting expert even examined Francis's handwriting and compared it to the From Hell letter, a letter that is believed to have been sent by Jack the Ripper to the chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. This letter was accompanied by a piece of human kidney. The whole organ would have been sent if it were not for the fact that the author claimed to have eaten the rest of it. The pathologist deduced that the kidney had come from a person of the age of about 45 years old, who had advanced Bright's disease. One of Jack the Ripper's victims, Mary Eddowes, a 43-year-old woman who had Bright's disease. And, just to kind of piece it together a little bit more, when her body was found, she was missing her kidney and her uterus. Back to the handwriting. The expert claimed it was an exact match. Francis stayed in the US until 1903. This is the year he died of natural causes. He got to live out the rest of his life naturally, despite becoming very, very wealthy and very rich off of selling snake oils, being charged with manslaughter, being charged with back alley abortions, being a main suspect in the Jack the Ripper murders, and also being a suspect in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. He got away. He might have spent a few days here and there being locked up, but he got away. It's mind-blowing. This guy's whole career was crime. That's all he did. even if he wasn't Jack the Ripper, even if he had nothing to do with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, he became rich off of scamming people, even killing people, doing insane things, trying to become a surgeon. Just going to a military general and saying, you know what, I want to be a surgeon, I'm going to do a lecture. Oh, I hate women. Here, I brought my collection of uteruses to show you, just to prove that.
The story of Francis Tumblety was a no-brainer for the first episode of Horrors of Humanity, in my eyes. The cunning con man, confirmed killer, and suspected killer that could have changed the course of history to the darker side, not once, but twice. Thanks for watching, and please let me know what you think. Was Francis actually Jack the Ripper? Or is he just another suspect with an insane story behind him?